amenifuata. Ndio alikuwa tu amekaa hapo. Ndio mimi nilitoka mbio.
Akanipeleka kwa meeting, tukajuana na
How many times have you tried to kill yourself? How many times has your family tried to kill you?
Mbona Mungu tu akachagua mimi tu? Alikuwa anasema niko na mashetani ya wanaume, ya kuwa mwanaume. Kumbe ilikuwa ni mpango nimepangiwa. Roho masisi mkuzo waliamka, kila mtu amechukua panga, mwingine rungu, ndio wao wamenifuata. Ndio alikuwa tu amekaa hapo. Ndio mimi nilitoka mbio.
Akanipeleka kwa meeting, tukajuana na polisi, tukiwa naona watu kama mimi, tukiwa tunafanana nao, nasikia niko free.
Our community doesn't understand. Our government doesn't understand. Our families don't understand.
Tristan, welcome to Queer Guru and congratulations on your film Sydney and Friends, which I think at one time when I was watching it I was sobbing more than Sydney himself. So let's start with you telling us what the film is about without giving it all away.
The film is a feature documentary. It's about Sydney, and Sydney is from rural Western Kenya. And when Sydney was growing up, he was different from everyone else in his community. So much so that when he was in his teenage years, his family tried to kill him. Sydney fled to Nairobi, the capital city, and there his life continued to be quite difficult and harsh. He was beaten, stripped in public, and then his life changed when he met a group of transgender friends. And that's when he discovered that he was intersex. So the film follows a group of friends through their past experiences, their hopes and dreams, and at times it's very difficult. But also there's a theme of friendship and love that runs throughout, and that's kind of what keeps the group together. And we finish with a really hopeful ending that a lot of people might not expect.
So what's a nice boy like you that lives in the very top in the highlands of Scotland, miles away from nowhere, doing in Kenya in the first place? And how did you meet Sydney?
It was all a bit of an accident, really. I was going out to visit my sister. She lives there. And I wasn't planning on making a film or doing anything. I did pack a camera and a tripod and a mic, just in case I found something small and perhaps I could do, make a little short film or something like that. And what happened was I met Gullet, who's in the film. Gullet is kind of the wise old owl in the film, and he said that he ran a charity and that he had members that wanted to speak out, and that in itself is very courageous because we come from countries in the West where we're able to speak without really much fear, but there it's very taboo, very misunderstood, very confused with being transgender or intersex or gender non-conforming, is very confused with being gay or homosexual. And then that complicates laws. The laws are brought into it because in Kenya, I can't remember off the top of my head, but something like 19 years imprisonment for having gay sex. So it was extremely courageous to say that they wanted to be on camera.
Yeah.
So they said, would you be able to record some interviews? I said, yeah, sure, I'll record some interviews. So I started recording, and it was only then that I discovered that what they were saying was incredible, powerful, needed to be seen on for a much wider audience. And I didn't really understand the the enormity of it all until I got back home to Scotland and could afford to have the interviews translated, because half of them are in Swahili. That I realised that, wow, this is really, really powerful stuff, and it really needs to be treated so responsibly, that I felt that there was enough there to try and go ahead and make it into a feature documentary, and that's what we did.
You filmed this, Tristan, over 3 years with no money. How did you manage that?
I actually, don't tell the UK government, was funding myself while I was there on my working tax credit, which I think at the time was £52 a week or something.
Yeah.
That's what, that was the pre-production. That was the production film. That was me living and being able to film. So I travelled by Matatu. That's the local kind of minibuses there. Kind of built for 8 people and fit 65. I paid for taxis for some of the contributors to get them from where they needed to be across Nairobi. It was all done through no money.
Yeah.
When I got back to Scotland, I waited 6 months for the translations because I had to sell cameras, equipment and stuff to pay for it. That's when I realised, right, okay, we're going to need some money here. And I tried and I tried. And when I came back in 2013, around about 2014, the funding opportunities, every door that was open shut in my face. Mm-hmm. People weren't interested. It's too much of a niche subject. You know, people in Scotland or UK weren't interested in transgender people in Kenya. Times have changed very quickly in those short few years, where transgender people are seen much more in the mainstream. And it was only because I was based here in the Highlands of Scotland that we managed to do it through, because the Highlands of Scotland is a vulnerable region within the European Union, not for so much longer, because of its rurality and its remoteness and size, that there wasn't funding, but there was help in terms of we were able to get the film finished to a high spec because of favours that were pulled in, and an incredible team that I already had behind me from previous work that were scattered across the globe, that put their creative talent into the film and kind of sprinkled magic all across.
There was one of your subjects who was struggling with identifying their own situation and journey, but was adamant at not being identified as gay in any way, but only wanted to be linked, but not wanted to be linked to the whole LGBTQ community. That's a very Kenyan thing, is it, do you think?
So difficult for someone who is from a gender minority to be themselves, but they have to fall under this LGBTQ umbrella for simple reasons like funding. Mm-hmm. So the US aid or aid from Scandinavian countries or Netherlands or UK, wherever the aid comes from, is all funneled through LGBT. It was LGBT at the time when I was there, so it's now expanded. And they feel they're persecuted because they're within this category of lesbian, gay, and bisexual, but makes it very, very difficult for them because of it's such a taboo matter in Kenya and across East and Central West Africa.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, as you mentioned, it was a British colony, and we seem to have left them, not them, and India, places like that, with a higher rate of homophobia than other countries. I mean, even in some places like Hong Kong, it took them years to decriminalise homosexuality, even though they were British. In Kenya, it's actually gay sex is still punishable with prison. Is there any light at the end of a tunnel yet?
In terms of issue surrounding being gay, no. It's a very dark place in terms of the law and the way politicians can use it to win votes. In 2013, when I was there, and the Kenyan elections were on, the politician, I can't remember his name, who was voted vice president, referred to gays as being less than dogs.
Yep.
So, in terms of that, I don't see it. My friends who are middle class don't have much of a problem. They can have boyfriends, they can go to cafes and congregate during the day, they can go to certain clubs at night, there'll be mixed clubs, but they can be relatively safe. But if you're from community such as Ben and Sydney, then being different is a no-no. So, a majority of Kenyans will still live in the slums. So, if you are different, like Ben or like Sydney, and you are, Ben and Sydney are homosexual, but say if one of them was, and they were caught in a sexual act by their neighbourhood, it is likely that they might be stripped in public, that they might be stoned, that terrible beatings would happen. That's the reality.
But you mentioned earlier, and we should repeat this, but somehow you had a happy end. We're not going to give it away, but you had a happy ending to the film. How important was that? I mean, you didn't manipulate it, that's what happened. How important was that for you?
3 years went past with nothing much happening with the film. And in a drama, if nothing happened in a drama that was filmed 3 years ago, big questions were being asked. But in terms of documentary, I quickly learned that documentary is real life.
Yeah.
And people's lives continue. So in 2013, I returned with footage. I didn't really have an ending that would make it into a feature film, that would give it a story arc. So it would have been much more of a portrait, maybe coming in about 45, 50 minutes. But one day I was sitting at home and my Facebook Messenger pinged, and it was Sydney. Now I kind of lost touch with Sydney and Ben over that period of time. I was in touch with other members of the film, but Ben and Sydney, just because of their circumstances, they moved from slums and things. It was very difficult to keep in touch. But he pinged up on my Facebook and we started chatting. The first thing that was incredible, I don't want to really give anything away, but the first thing that I found incredible was the interviews with Sydney in the film are all in Swahili. Mm-hmm. When I first met Sydney, he couldn't speak. He was so timid, had so much of his life, beaten out of him, that he couldn't speak. Well, I was chatting away to him in English. That was the first surprise to me, that he could speak English and speak it very well. But then he told me some other news, and like that made me go, oh, that's amazing.
No spoilers.
Right, that's really no spoilers. And then he told me some other news, and that's when my jaw hit the floor. And it's like, okay, I'm going to try really, really hard to come and see you. And within a week, thanks to Amanda Millen at Screen High, as part of Highlands and Islands Enterprise here in Scotland, I was there and re-interviewing Sydney. And that's how we kind of got the most amazing ending.
Your movie is now available to view on Amazon. So have you let go of it now? Are you still working on it?
Given that I'm speaking to you, no, it's still going on. Yeah. The film has been incredibly successful.
Yeah.
Far beyond what I would have ever thought.
Yeah.
I think was sitting on 13 awards. It screens in more than 30 odd countries, way more than 100 times in the different cinemas and festivals across the world. It's been released on Amazon Prime, so it's free to watch if you've got a Prime subscription, and that's available in the UK, Germany, and the US. We're working on a few things that hopefully in the not too distant future it will be available worldwide.
It's been great talking to you, and once again, we absolutely loved the film. Congratulations on it, and it deservedly won all those awards. And we'll hope to speak to you when you're doing your Scottish non-shortbread box.
If anyone does go and watch the film, it would be amazing. We're a tiny film, a small film with a really big heart. If they could just take the time to rate it on Amazon and leave a tiny little review, even if it's just a sentence, that really, really does help kind of push us up the algorithms.
Say no more. Say no more. It's done. It's done. Okay, great to talk to you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Akanipeleka kwa meeting, tukajuana na polisi, tukiwa naona watu kama mimi, tunafanana na hao, nasikia niko free.
Our community doesn't understand. Our government doesn't understand. Our families don't understand. Every day as you live, when you wake up the next day, you're like, wow, I made it.